Imagine being born into chains. You have no freedom, no control over your body, your future, even your daily life. You belong to someone else. Most people would call that the end of hope. But for one man, it was only the beginning. His name was Epictetus. Born a slave in the Roman Empire, he endured pain, abuse, and humiliation. Yet from this life of hardship, he forged one of the most powerful philosophies of freedom ever known. This is the story of how a slave became a philosopher, and how his wisdom can free you today. The early chains. Epictetus was born around 55 AD in Hierapolis, a Greek city in modern-day Turkey. From birth his fate was sealed. He was a slave. He served under a cruel master, Epictetus, a wealthy freedman in the court of Emperor Nero. Stories tell us that Epictetus suffered harsh treatment, even a crippling injury that left him lame for life. But instead of breaking his spirit, suffering sharpened it. He began to realize something extraordinary. Though his body could be bound, his mind was free. The turning point. Epictetus was eventually allowed to attend lectures by Musonius Rufus, a Stoic teacher in Rome. There he discovered the philosophy that would transform his life. Stoicism taught him that freedom is not found in wealth, status, or even physical liberty. It is found in mastering your mind. Epictetus embraced this truth. He realized that even as a slave, he could be freer than emperors if he refused to let external circumstances control his inner state. From slave to philosopher. When Nero died and chaos spread in Rome, Epictetus was eventually freed. But by then, he had already become a philosopher in spirit. He began teaching others the wisdom he had learned. That true power lies not in what happens to you, but in how you respond. Later, Emperor Domitian banished philosophers from Rome, and Epictetus fled to Nicopolis in Greece. There he founded his own school. Unlike other philosophers who spoke to the elite, Epictetus taught soldiers, merchants, slaves, and common people. His school was not about abstract theories, but about how to live and endure. His teachings. Epictetus's philosophy can be summed up in one powerful idea. So it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Here are some of his core lessons. 1. Control versus not control. Epictetus divided life into two categories: things in our control, our thoughts, choices and actions, and things outside our control, wealth, health, reputation, death. Freedom comes from focusing only on what you can control and letting go of the rest. 2. Resilience in hardship. Suffering, he said, is not caused by events but by our judgment of them. A broken leg or an insult is painful, but how we interpret it determines whether it destroys us or strengthens us. 3. Inner freedom. Even a slave can be free if he rules himself. Even a king is enslaved if he is ruled by fear, anger, or desire. True freedom is mastery of the self. 4. Living with virtue. For Epictetus, the goal of life was to live according to nature, guided by reason and virtue. Happiness comes not from pleasure or possessions, but from integrity, courage, justice, and wisdom. The power of example. Epictetus didn't just preach, he lived his philosophy. He lived modestly, owning little and never seeking wealth or power. He was known for his humility, patience, and calm even in difficulty. His life itself was proof. A man born a slave could rise above circumstance and become spiritually unbreakable. His student Arrian recorded his teachings in the Discourses and the Enchiridion. These works became some of the most influential texts in Western philosophy, read by soldiers, leaders, monks, and even modern thinkers. Epictetus's legacy. Think about this. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, carried the words of Epictetus, once a slave, as his personal guide. A ruler of the world took wisdom from a man who once had no freedom. That is the power of Stoicism. Truth spoken from chains can reach the ears of kings. Today, Epictetus still speaks to us. In a world obsessed with status, comfort, and control, he reminds us those things are illusions. The only thing you truly own is your mind, and if you master that, no one can enslave you. Your life, your freedom. Epictetus' story forces us to ask, where am I enslaved, not by chains, but by fear, anger, or desire? Do I let circumstances control me, or do I control my response? Am I living like a master of myself or a slave to the world? True freedom, Epictetus says, is available to you now. Not when you earn more, not when life is perfect, but right now, in how you choose to think and act. Closing. From slave to philosopher, Epictetus lived one of history's most extraordinary transformations. But his real message is this: you don't need to be born free to live free. Chains can bind the body but never the soul unless you allow it. So take Epictetus's lesson to heart. Focus on what you can control. Let go of the rest and live with courage and virtue. That is the path to true freedom.